Today, Kaz has to deal with one racer who's trying to run rings around the mall.
How you get so big getting food of this kind?
Hello and welcome back. Today I'm reviewing Fuel for the Fire, the third episode in Star Wars Resistance, a show that I've had a really good time watching so far. I loved the recruit, I loved the Triple Dark. I liked this episode. It wasn't bad. It wasn't as good as the last two. But with that, there was a lot of really good stuff that was going on. So let's get into the story as we have it ahead of us. I will say that I'm going to get into some spoilers, so if you're trying to avoid spoilers, this is not the review you're looking for. Basically, the story of this episode is as follows. Kaz is once again dealing with the fact that he just wants to be at the Colossus doing Colossus stuff. Only this time, instead of trying to spy a lot, he's just really wanting to be a racer, and this is kind of the three-pronged problem that Kaz had that we did see in the pilot, we didn't see as much in the last episode, which is not only does he want to be a spy, and not only does he need to blend in as a mechanic, but he ultimately wants to be a racer and ultimately wants to be a pilot. So this episode, he's trying to fix an engine, which he can't do, and Yeager's trying to explain to him yet again that he can't fake being a mechanic. He really needs to be able to be a mechanic if he's gonna stay in this mechanic's garage of his. And Kaz basically is trying to be a mechanic, which he can't be, while also watching a race, which he can't do, and in getting distracted, the engine he's trying to fix falls into the ocean. Yeager has to fish it up. He and Yeager kind of get into a fight about this kind of triangle of emotions that Kaz is feeling, and Kaz ends up storming off because he's angry. While he's storming off and kind of telling his blues to Aunt Z, he meets a pilot named Jace. Now, I instantly was concerned about Jace because the name Jace reminds me a lot of a pilot named Jace from the X-Wing novels, who, you know, was kind of a hotshot jerk. So I was like, alright, I guess the hotshot jerk is gonna finally show up. Another thing I found interesting is here we have the character voiced by Elijah Wood. It had been announced that Elijah Wood was going to have some kind of role in Resistance, so he got his well-recognizable voice. I kind of had a feeling that they just brought him in to be a bad guy. The story as follows is simple. Jace tries to take Kaz under his wing, show him how cool he and his friends are, hanging out, doing cool stuff that the kids do these days, and sneaking through secret tunnels through the station, and then they hop on some speeder bikes, and he's all like, Kaz, race with me, bro, and they get on the speeders, and then Kaz's bike mysteriously malfunctions while they're racing. What a coincidence. But thankfully, Jace is there to save his life and pulls him to safety, and everyone but Kaz is aware that Jace did this just to get Kaz indebted to him to try to bring about friendship. And it becomes very obvious in the episode that Jace had commissioned his buddy to sabotage the bike. What this kid really wants is to sneak into Yeager's secret garage. He tries to tell Kaz that Yeager has a secret other racer that he hasn't told Kaz about, which we technically don't know if that's true or not true. But mostly he wants to get into Yeager's garage because he wants to get some nitro, some fancy hyperfuel that Yeager's holding on to because Jace wants to go really fast. Kaz and Jace sneak into Yeager's office where Jace pilfers the hyperfuel without telling Kaz. Then they both kind of sneak out. All the while, Yeager is pretty mad that Kaz has just been disappearing for large periods of time like any boss would. And it gets into this kind of mentor-mentee headbutting where Kaz just basically keeps running more and more into Jace's camp, which is getting him more and more into doing whatever Jace wants. But once Jace has the hyperfuel, he doesn't need Kaz anymore, and he kind of brushes him off. And it's only then that Kaz realizes that the hyperfuel has been stolen. He didn't know Jace took it, and realizes that Jace is in trouble, because if he's not careful with that hyperfuel, he could blow himself up. Kaz runs off once again and stops Jace from destroying his ship, basically, and saves his life, but also Yeager kind of helps, because as it turns out, Jace is really dumb and took the parachute off of his racer because it made him too heavy to go fast. So Yeager's pretty upset. He's not really sure how to handle Kaz until he overhears Kaz and Jace have an argument where Jace is like, you can't prove that I took the hyperfuel, man, and how dare you be there when my ship blows up, I'm gonna blame you for it. And we find out that Kaz has made an enemy out of Jace. At this point, Yeager can put two and two together, and he's figured out what happened, and ultimately, even though he's still upset, is still happy that Kaz had the courage to step up and try to fix his mistake. So, like I said, that's basically the plot as a whole. This is the kind of story I was expecting out of the first season of the show. It's that kind of filler. The hero has to learn the basic lessons of how to exist as a person in the galaxy. It is important because Kaz hasn't really learned this lesson. I guess for me, it just felt repetitive because the episode beforehand was literally Kaz learns that he has to be a mechanic to be a spy. And then this one was like Kaz learns that he has to be a mechanic so he doesn't make friends with jerks. It felt like almost the same lesson 2 episodes in a row, so it wasn't really my problem with the lesson. I feel like I just watched this episode, only instead of pirates, I got another pilot, and it just felt like a less exciting version of the episode we'd already watched. Now, it is a good lesson, and it is a good thing to have, and I love hearing Elijah Wood in Star Wars, and really the best part of this episode is while Yeager's in his office, we learn a lot of things about his past. We learn that he was in the Rebel Alliance, and we learn that he was at the Battle of Jakku. And anytime I hear Battle of Jakku, I get really excited because 2 of the best books in Star Wars canon, Star Wars Aftermath Empire's End and Star Wars Lost Stars, both depict the Battle of Jakku, and I just get so pumped. I feel like the Battle of Jakku has kind of become one of the most important battles in Star Wars because we see it so much in The Force Awakens, and it's one of those things that we don't really know about, even though we know a lot about, and has popped up in other things and has been mentioned in other things, and I don't know. So that kind of reference had me really excited, and then we see the picture of Yeager with his family, and some people who are much more observant than me have pointed out on Twitter that the background of Yeager's family photo is the same background we see in a lot of the promotional images for Galaxy's Edge. Yeah, resort and theme park being built at Disney World for Star Wars. So that's just kind of a cool shout out that we see in Resistance that we also saw in Thrawn Alliances earlier in the year. So even though I wasn't as up on the episode, and again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with the episode, it's just, it felt like the episode I had just watched. There's so much background that I really want to get more into. I was saying before that we see so much of Kaz, we're not learning as much about these other characters. And while I really like Kaz, I really want to learn more about these other characters. So to kind of get a little bit more into Yeager's mind is really exciting to me. I also like how, you know, we watch Yeager talk to Kaz, and Yeager's clearly getting so upset with Kaz. But at the same time, we see an exchange in this episode where Tam is like, "Where's Kaz? I don't know why we're putting up with him." And Yeager should be in the middle of being really upset with Kaz, says, you know, "Give him a break, I gave you one." And that adds this other layer of what's going on. You know, what is Yeager's relationship to Tam, and what does that mean? What kind of break did Tam need, and what is the story there? And so we're starting to get kind of like all these onion layers of some of the other characters in the story, and that's really what I want to see more of, and that was really the strong point of this episode for me. But enough about what I think. What do you think? Please leave me a comment letting me know what you think about the show so far. What do you want to see from the show going forward? If you're not already, please follow us on Twitter at Porthaven Forums and visit port-haven.com for even more. And until next time, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking candy bar.